Good morning, everybody. On behalf of Terry University, I would like to welcome all the participants who are attending it face to face and also those who are attending it online to this webinar. This webinar is about the science of climate change and comprised of three lectures. One lecture will talk about the basics of climate science. The second will talk about how we monitor different variables of climate change. And the third lecture will talk about the basics of climate modeling. The first session will be taken up by myself, and myself is Dr. Kamna Sachdeva. I am working with Terry University in the capacity of Assistant Professor, Department of Natural Resources. Now I will start that why we need to understand the science of climate change. From my point of view, everybody has a view of climate change, but all the people are not basically educated in the climate science. Right now, the climate science word or climate change word is a kind of word which has a viewpoint even for the vegetable vendor. But all the people who has a viewpoint does not have a proper understanding that what exactly the climate science is. And I believe that if I ask the people who are sitting here that how many of you believe in climate change, many of you will say yes. But being a scientist, I cannot say that belief is the right word. So the right word is evidence. So we should see that what are the different evidences which tells you that actually the climate change is happening or it is not happening. So there are skeptics also who say that climate change is not happening. But science gives us that evidence that yes, it is happening. And I can tell you that this climate science is not any rocket science or quantum science and which needs to be understood in a very depth way. This science exists as a basic science from ages, which talks about basic of the atmosphere, basics of meteorology, basics of understanding of different chemical behavior of the gases, everything. But how this science being used to understand or to give evidence of a climate change, right? So through my lecture, I would try to tell you or fix your belief that yes, climate change is happening, but with the good scientific evidence. And if you understand the science behind the change which is happening, then you will have a better decision-making capacity within yourself. So basic aim of this whole webinar is that people will understand the basic science behind what the climate change and how you monitor them and how impact and decision making can be assessed based on such understanding. So there are various facets of climate science. First of all, I want to tell you that what is the link between greenhouse gases and the climate change, and why these greenhouse gases are greenhouse gases, and also what is the different chemical behavior these greenhouse gases have to act as a greenhouse gas. So my first slide is about the aim of the climate science lecture. So basic aim of this lecture is to connect that how greenhouse gases are related to climate change, and also I would be giving different evidences of climate change during my lecture. So sorry for the hiccups which is happening here. So first of all, aim of the lecture. The aim of today's first session of the lecture is to understand relationship between greenhouse gases and climate change. And also my lecture will cover what is the basic science which defines the global climate change, and also how Earth's relative balance and the perturbation in the Earth relative balance links to the climate change. What is the concept of sources and sinks of GHGs? And also on these scientific evidences, we will build that how decision maker use this science to come to certain consensus to manage the climate change. So to fix your belief in climate change, I would like to run one 2 minutes movie, which is a National Geographical movie on the climate change. And that will basically would help us to have a stage setting for today's lecture. So you can run.
For 2.5 million years, the Earth's climate has fluctuated, cycling from ice ages to warmer periods. But in the last century, the planet's temperature has risen unusually fast, about 1.2 to 1.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Scientists believe it's human activity that's driving the temperatures up, a process known as global warming. Ever since the Industrial Revolution began, factories, power plants, and eventually cars have burned fossil fuels such as oil and coal, releasing huge amounts of carbon dioxide and other gases into the atmosphere. These greenhouse gases trap heat near the Earth through a naturally occurring process called the greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect begins with the sun and the energy it radiates to the Earth. The Earth and the atmosphere absorb some of this energy, while the rest is radiated back into space. Naturally occurring gases in the atmosphere trap some of this energy and reflect it back, warming the Earth. Scientists now believe that the greenhouse effect is being intensified by the extra greenhouse gases that humans have released. Evidence for global warming includes a recent string of very warm years. Scientists report that 1998 was the warmest year in measured history, with 2005 coming in second. Meanwhile, readings taken from ice cores show that the greenhouse gases carbon dioxide and methane have hit their highest levels in the past 420,000 years. Arctic sea ice is also shrinking. According to NASA studies, the extent of Arctic sea ice has declined about 10% in the last 30 years. As long as industrialized nations consume energy and developing countries increase their fossil fuel consumption, the concentration of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere will continue to rise. Researchers predict that temperatures will increase about 2 to 10 degrees Fahrenheit by the end of the century. What's less certain is what rising temperatures mean for the planet. Some climate models predict subtle changes. Others forecast rising sea levels which could flood coastal areas around the world. Weather patterns could change, making hurricanes more frequent. Severe droughts could become more common in warm areas, and species unable to adapt to the changing conditions would face extinction. Although much remains to be learned about global warming, many organizations advocate cutting greenhouse gas emissions to reduce the impact of global warming. Consumers can help by saving energy around the house, switching to compact fluorescent light bulbs, and driving fewer miles in the car each week. These simple changes may help keep the Earth cooler in the future.
Explained almost everything about the climate change, but you have seen that how weather, climate has developed and how it has put impact on day-to-day life of a human being. And I just want to say that everybody of us has experienced weather, but we have never experienced climate change. Because climate change is not a short-term phenomena. It's a long-term phenomena. Whatever we are seeing outside right now as a foggy weather, but we cannot say that it is happening because of climate change. To understand that it is happening because of climate change, we need data support. We need long-term data, which is average at least for 30 years to have an average understanding of the climate, right? So we have experienced weather, but we have not experienced climate. When we don't experience anything, but we all have a viewpoint on it, so science should, back it for that. Whatever you are saying that it is happening because of climate change or not happening because of climate change. So my next slide talks about little about the few big scientists who has worked for the science of climate change, and they're working from, you can say, 1768 or so what. So Joseph Fourier, he was the person who first time explained that what is greenhouse effect is. And I would be explaining you what is greenhouse effect. Greenhouse effect is basically behavior of our earth to absorb outgoing infrared radiation. Second, John Tyndall, he explains that there are certain gases called greenhouse gases. Carbon dioxide and especially water vapor are the gases which absorb IR radiation. And most importantly, Serente Arrhenius, he is a person who has connected that, if the carbon dioxide would be doubled, then and 5-degree rise in temperature would take place. And he has explained this in 1920s. And right now, still we are, working on what will be the, consensus on global temperature, stabilization. So these are the scientists who are basically people who have explained climate science in 17th century itself. So we are talking about science from that time. So I will build on what they have said, that how different greenhouse gases, warms our planet. So first of all, I just wanted to tell you that this is a very famous diagram which you will see about the Earth radiation balance. Remember that when we are saying climate forcing, when we are saying climate change, whatever we are experiencing is happening because of the changing in Earth radiation budget. All the weather, climate which we receive is because of the sun, light which we receive on our Earth. And its reflectability, albedo, and the very, you can say, component of the climate are there, what kind of heat they absorb, what kind of heat they reflect, basically defines that how much energy our Earth is receiving on per meter square, level. So if you see this diagram, in this diagram, if we take a albedo of the Earth as 30%, then the amount of energy we receive is around 342 watt per meter square. Watt is a unit of power and meter square is a unit of area. So basically watt per meter square means how much energy in terms of power per unit area Earth is receiving. And if you see, there are three components in this diagram: space, atmosphere, and land. And if you try to balance the energy here, you will see the energy get balanced in space, atmosphere, and land. And this balance has to be maintained. If there is a change in this balance, even a small change would lead to the basically push, that is called as forcing. And this forcing basically leads to the changes in the climate. So I hope this is the most simplified way I can say that how any perturbation in the system affects and lead to the impact. And these impacts, what we receive, are climate change, right? Another diagram, which is again related to radiation budget, and where I have explained about Stephen Boltzmann radiation law. This diagram you can correlate with the previous diagram as well. You will see that, any radiating body, if it is a sun or if it is a earth, when it heats up, it radiates energy, right? But radiation emission is based on Stephen Boltzmann law, and it is fourth power of the temperature, right? The equation which is written, which is coming on the screen, you will see that Stephen Boltzmann law explains that how any body when heats up radiates energy. Any body which has a higher temperature like sun emits radiation in the lower wavelength, that is smaller wavelength. Any body which is colder will emit radiation in the longer wavelength. This is basically main phenomena to understand greenhouse effect, because Earth as compared to sun is colder, hence it emits energy back in longer wavelength. And this can be explained by another law which is called as Wien displacement law, which relates temperature and the wavelength of the energy. So Earth radiates back when heated by the sun with the longer wavelength. And this longer wavelength basically absorbed by the different greenhouse gases which are present in our atmosphere. And this phenomena of absorbing heat by the greenhouse gases is called as greenhouse effect. I hope this is clear to everybody that how these gases absorb energy, particularly long radiation wavelengths. Another way of looking at it as we can say that these greenhouse gases which are present in our atmosphere are transparent to shorter wavelength, which is coming from the sun, but they are opaque for the outgoing IR radiation that is long wavelength. So it is trapped in our atmosphere, right? But definitely I'm not saying that everything is trapped. We have atmospheric window regions. We have different feedback mechanisms which are operating within our system, which manage it within limits. Right now, we say that Earth's global temperature has reached to 15 plus minus 1 degree Celsius. What does it mean? It means that we have raised our average global Earth surface temperature by 1 degree Celsius. So average global temperature of Earth is 15 degrees, but now we are enhanced it to 1 degree Celsius plus, we are saying. Now global consensus is for 2 degrees, that we want that we would not exceed 2 degrees, because if we exceed 2 degrees, then there is a changes which we cannot manage. So it is very important to understand the science and then taking a right decision after understanding. Another diagram which I just wanted to show you, same thing which I said, that how UV visible and infrared spectrums basically are emitted, or how different components of the atmosphere absorbs energy and in which band they absorb. If you see, the spectrum of sunlight is yellow and the spectrum of other greenhouse gases like water vapor and CO2 is in the infrared band. So this diagram also gives us the evidence and fix our belief. I will not use this word. Basically, it gives us that real scientific basis that the greenhouse gases, their absorption bands and IR bands are matching with each other. And because of this matching, these greenhouse gases absorb outgoing IR radiation going back from the Earth's surface. The another diagram in the slide is showing the very important phenomena. Two things I want to explain from this diagram. One is that if you see the latitude, longitude, you will see the 0 degree latitude, and from its left and right, there is a surplus of energy. Okay, and on the right side, north and south poles, if you see, you will see there is a deficit of energy. This surplus and the deficit of energy, basically heating of the Earth, I want to say this way, that Earth is heat up differentially. All the portion of the Earth does not get heat equally. And this is important for different weather phenomena also. Because heat moves from surplus to deficit regions. That is why wind blows. That is why weather phenomena are created. That is why different climate zones are created. So this is very important phenomena. But if there is a shift in surplus and deficit region, then definitely you can imagine that there will be a difference in weather phenomena. There would be extreme events which will come. There would be, more cyclones, more tornadoes, because cyclones are generated because sea surface temperature is increased from 26.5 degrees Celsius. If your sea surface temperature will not reach 26.5, then no cyclone will be created within sea. So I'm giving you a cyclone as an example, that if there is a shift in radiation balance from surplus areas or deficit areas, then definitely there is a change in weather phenomena. There is a change in extreme weather events. That is basically the consequences which we face from climate change. Now, we have seen that how radiation budget works and why it is important for weather phenomena. Now, what are greenhouse gases? The word greenhouse, basically, it has many connotations. It absorbs wavelength in that region, green wavelength band. Also, greenhouse gases word comes because this has originated at the time when we have to protect in the colder region, plants have to be covered with greenhouses, and greenhouses are created for plant to have or maintain certain temperature. That is why this word has come and originated. But there are different gases which is categorized under greenhouse gases category. Water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, N2O, O3, CFCs and SF6. These are the major gases, but there are another components also like particles also which now absorb energy. But these are the important listed greenhouse gases. I want to tell you that they have a certain chemical behavior also to behave as greenhouse gas. I will be dealing it in the next slide. But another diagram which is on the slide is showing that there is a normal concentration of GHGs and there is an increased concentration of GHGs. If you see in a normal concentration, this greenhouse effect and greenhouse gases is very important for Earth's radiation balance. This is a very good effect. Why? Because if greenhouse effect would not be here on Earth, you cannot survive on Earth. The temperature of the Earth will not be 15 degrees Celsius, but minus 19 degrees Celsius. And you can imagine the world here, minus 19 degrees. So these greenhouse gases has its own importance, but we are worried about its excessive release. If these greenhouse gases are not present, then we are freeze with cold. To maintain the optimum temperature on the planet Earth, these are important. But excessive release of carbon dioxide particularly is leading us to runaway greenhouse effect, leading us to enhance greenhouse effect. This is the problem. Now we have to use the word excessive greenhouse effect or enhanced greenhouse effect. Normal greenhouse effect is good for our planet. Always remember that. And why we are so much worried about carbon dioxide and more anthropogenic emissions? Because water vapor generally we don't consider as greenhouse when we are talking about policy decisions. Why? Because content of the water vapor remains constant in the atmosphere and it has a natural sources and sinks also. But carbon dioxide is emitted from all the combustion products. So that is why its excessive release is a problem. So that we need to look into whenever we are talking about science of climate change. This is a chart which talks about different greenhouse gases, their chemical formula, their pre-industrial concentration and current concentration, atmospheric lifetime, anthropogenic sources, and global warming potential. So this table summarizes almost everything about the chemistry of the greenhouse gases. If you see, let's take an example of carbon dioxide only. If you see, pre-industrial concentration was close to 278 ppb levels. Now it is 358 in 1994, and if I talk about current, it is close to 400 ppb levels by volume. Its lifetime is variable, and its variable means it varies from 200 to 1000 years. So when the carbon dioxide molecule emits in the atmosphere, it remains in the atmosphere as that particular molecule for 1000 years. That is why this particular component is very important. So all the policies which we talk about carbon dioxide, because its lifetime is most important thing. And it has several sources, and combustion we cannot stop in this industrialized world, be it be fossil emission, be it be biomass emission. So combustion releases carbon dioxide. So if you manage combustion, you manage climate change in one sense, but we cannot manage combustion because burning is our need, combustion is our need for anything. If you see global warming potential, global warming potential is basically potency of a greenhouse gas to cause greenhouse effect. Potency means how efficient it is to cause global warming, okay? But carbon dioxide kept as a reference material, so it is given 1. So we compare other gases with carbon dioxide. So you see methane has a 21 if you take a lifetime of 25 years. So basically 21 times more potent greenhouse gas. It means that if you release 1 molecule of methane or 1 molecule of carbon dioxide will cause warming 1, but methane will cause warming of 25 times more. Right? So some policy decision makers do say that if you manage these gases, then it is more better as compared to carbon dioxide because they are short-lived gases. They can be managed easily because their lifetime, residence time in the atmosphere is very less. Okay, so basically we need to trade off that what we have to reduce and what we need not to reduce. But this table summarizes about all the things which we should know about the different greenhouse gases, particularly at the time of. So just to basically use as an energizer, we will be running one poll question here. So you will try to answer it. We will give you a few seconds for it. So they act as the energizers to break the monotony of the slides. So we continue our lecture further. Why GHG absorb heat? So we have seen that this is the important GHG gases. what are their, variable behavior, what are their sources, but why these greenhouse gases are greenhouse gases. Why not nitrogen, because which is present in 78% in our atmosphere, absorb heat, right? Why oxygen is not absorbing heat? It is 21%, by composition, it is part of our atmosphere. So the carbon dioxide, which is present in 0.03% as part of our atmosphere, why it is so important? Why that small quantity gas is of importance? Because of its chemical nature, it absorbs energy. So to be a greenhouse gas, a molecule should have a trimolecular structure. And because of its trimolecular structure, it has a vibrational and rotational band. It has to vibrate, the molecule has to vibrate in the when it is present in the atmosphere, and its vibrational and rotational band should match with the outgoing IR radiation band. If this match, then only it will absorb energy, otherwise it will not. And CO2, methane, or other gases, CFCs, they all have this trimolecular structure, and their rotational and vibrational bands create a dipole moment in such a way that its IR radiation band matches, and that makes it greenhouse gas. That is why they absorb energy, and that to be long wavelength energy, that is IR energy. I hope it is clear for everybody that why these greenhouse gases are greenhouse gases. So I would like to give you some factors also which determines the contribution of different greenhouse gases. The contribution, that which is more important greenhouse gas out of the listed greenhouse gases. One, its concentration. Second, its lifetime. And third is effectiveness as infrared absorber. And concentration wise, water vapor and carbon dioxide are two biggest contributors. And but we are more focused on carbon dioxide because it is emitted through anthropogenic emissions more. Lifetime, if you see, the carbon dioxide has the highest lifetime, or variable lifetime, I can say that. Higher the lifetime, higher its contribution, we consider. N2O contribution is greater than methane. Why? Because methane has a lifetime of only 10 years or so. But N2O has a very high lifetime. Lifetime means that a molecule remains in the atmosphere in that particular chemical molecule. It does not break into different kind of chemicals, or its sinks will not absorb it. Sinks is something which absorbs these greenhouse gases, and the biggest sinks available on our Earth system is ocean and the forest for these greenhouse gases. Third important thing is effectiveness as infrared absorber. This is based on the chemistry, means that their dipole moment, their vibrational and rotational band should match with IR bands. Okay, and there is an area in the atmosphere which is called as atmospheric windows, from 7 to 13 micrometer area. If these gases get accumulated in that window area, or their bands are matching with that window wavelength areas, then they don't allow heat to go or escape to space. It blocks it. This also talks about effectiveness of an IR absorber. So where their bands are present, if their bands are matching with the window bands, then also they are become effective absorbers. So these are the few important parameters you should know when you're talking about the GHG gases. Next important thing that I have talked before also, forcing. You can see forcing as any external push. Forced behavior. This is not normal behavior. Forcing is always forced. Remember that. When there is a forcing on the climate system, it will react. It will give you some response. If I push you, then you will, get some response. Similarly, our climate system gives extreme weather events, heavy rainfall, low rainfall, drought. These are basically responses of a system to the forcing, to the push. So you have to see the forcing like this. And forcing can be natural and anthropogenic. If it is a natural forcing, then it has to be natural sources like volcanic eruptions, dust, and maybe some changes in our astronomical parameters, like orbit of the Earth, tilt of the Earth, right? Obliquity of the Earth. All these are the natural forces which force our system to change. Okay, And these natural forcing is explained by Malkovich. He was a Russian scientist. He tried to explain that how the receiving of the sunlight may change because of the tilt of the earth. I give you a very good example that if our orbit of the earth changes from present elliptical to more elliptical, then we will move to warm periods. When it goes to more circular orbits, then we will go to cold spells like ice ages. But these are the very long-term changes, so we cannot absorb in our lifetime, 41,000, 1 lakh years of the cycle. So climate change can occur because of this natural forcings also. Forcing means changing the receiving of the sun or sun's output on the earth. It can be because of the change in the astronomical parameters. So natural forcing. Then comes the anthropogenic forcing. Anthropogenic forcing can be because of combustion of fossil fuels, vehicles and industries, land use changes, and also a new component called aerosols. There are certain aerosol species, particularly black carbon, brown carbon, which has a tendency to absorb IR radiation. Hence, they are now important for the climate point of view. But they are anthropogenically origin. There are certain aerosols which are emitted from volcanic eruptions, can put in the category of natural forcing as well. This is a very famous diagram. This is a representation of the IPCC diagram. You will see that different forcing has been represented with red and blue lines. Red means positive forcing, blue means negative forcing. Anything which is showing here blue is causing the cooling of a planet. Anything which is showing red is showing the warming of the planet. So positive forcing means components which adds heat to the planet. Blue lines are cooling. Initially, when climate studies or climate change science was developed, people do think that aerosols particularly are cooling agents and they balance the carbon dioxide warming. But nowadays, there are certain species of aerosols which are also absorbing. So gradually that balance has gone and net anthropogenic component forcing is showing with the maroon color is positive. That means global warming is evident. So with this diagram, we can say that positive forcing has overcome the negative forcing and net forcing is positive. Little bit about the aerosols. Basically, aerosols are suspensions of solid and liquid particles in the air. It can be of any nature, dust, soot, sulfuric acid, sea salt, pollen, anything. But we are more focused on black carbon and brown carbon particles because they have tendency to absorb heat, energy. So black carbon is basically nothing for the layman like a black soot emitting from the vehicle tailpipe. So you can relate it with that. So you can say that if vehicular emissions are emitting, then black carbon is also emitting. So we need to manage that particular component as well. Black carbon basically is a product of incomplete combustion and emitted from vehicle emission and biomass combustion. And developing world like India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and all these areas where biomass burning and cooking through biomass is very prevalent, and we need to manage biomass combustion also and also vehicular emissions also to manage black carbon emissions. This is one diagram which my fellow colleague will also show in his slide, but this diagram is basically connecting system, climate system, forcing and the consequences together. So my colleague will build on this diagram later on, but this is one composite diagram which talks about how climate shows response to the forcing. Okay, so far what I have covered is what are greenhouse gases, how perturbation on our earth which leads to changes, and why and how effectiveness of the greenhouse gases has been evaluated. So now I'm hopeful that your evidence in climate change has been improved or built up. So now I will come to the definition of climate change. Climate change is long-term average identifiable changes in climate variables, and long-term means at least 30 years. As I said, you experience weather, never climate, and this climate change is due to natural processes like Malkovich cycle, and also it can be because of forced anthropogenic emissions. When you say that it is happening because of natural forcing, then people do use the word climate variability also. So climate variability and climate change are the two words which you will definitely come across. So some scientists do prefer to use variability because sometimes you want to see the change for 10 years at least, decadal changes. Then variability is a better word. But you have a data of around 100, 200 years, then you can use a change because change do happen in a long scale in that matter. So climate variability and climate change, you should know. And also you should know that weather is a day-to-day phenomena, but climate change is a long-term phenomena. So with this slide, you should be able to tell that what is the difference between weather, climate variability, and climate change. Causes of climate change, natural causes, volcanic emissions, tectonic changes, and changes in sun because of Baikonowitz cycle, anthropogenic due to human activities. Any activity that releases greenhouse effects into the atmosphere, greenhouse gases into the atmosphere is basically one of the causes of climate change. A little bit about the climate feedback. As I said, that when these gases are present and when we are continuously emitting, then by now our climate change must have happened and our planet must have collapsed. But this has not happened. Why? Because there are certain feedbacks which are managing our climate right now. There are positive feedbacks, there are negative feedbacks. Anything which enhances the greenhouse effect is positive feedback. Anything which reduces the greenhouse effect is negative feedback. So these feedbacks are continuously working in our system to manage each other, right? But now we are more concerned that because positive feedbacks are much larger, because modeling study says that it is much higher than the negative feedback. So I give you a very good example. For example, because of global warming, our planet gets heats up. Because of extra heating, evaporation would increase. Because of evaporation, more water vapor will go into our atmosphere, right? But water vapor is a greenhouse gas. More heating, more water vapor. But water vapor is a greenhouse gas. Then again more heating. So it's a cascading of effect. So one component heating, more water vapor. Water vapor is a greenhouse gas, again heating. So what one starting point is increasing the global warming, right? So it's a positive feedback because it is enhancing the global warming. But supposedly, because of the more evaporation, more clouds are forming. And clouds has a albedo, more reflectivity, close to 1. That means it will deflect all the sunlight which is reaching to this Earth's surface. So more clouds, more reflectivity. That means it will cause cooling of the Earth. So it's a negative feedback. So both are operating simultaneously. Cooling and warming. Positive feedback, negative feedback. So they are balancing each other. But we are worrisome. Why? Because now positive feedbacks are taking over the negative. I am hopeful that it is clear. And albedo, there is a small box on my slide. The albedo is a reflectivity scale from 0 to 1. 0 is no reflection and 1 is all reflected. So this will clear your phenomena that higher the albedo, close to 1, more reflectivity, that means be related to cooling of the Earth, right? I'm running short of time, so I will quickly, so these are the bases of climate science. And then I will talk about the evidences. I will quickly go through. You will see through my slide that this is the temperature anomaly 1980 to 1984 time period. Then I am quickly going just see the timeline, how it is changing, how the globe's temperature anomaly are changing, and you will see globe today that it is totally warm as compared to the starting timeline. So this is the last timeline. So you will see the globe in my first slide when I started the temperature anomaly slide and now. So it's all red, towards red. That means average global temperature has risen already. So there is a time to take action. This is another evidence from ice cores. If you take out the ice cores from the Antarctica and the frozen part of the Earth, you will see that interglacial period and glacier period timelines are showing that Earth's temperature is rising. Another kind of, again from the ice cores, that CO2 concentration and increase in temperature can relate to each other, and you will see that now our CO2 concentration has touching to 400 ppm, and how it is leading to the rise in temperature. The Earth system, if you see human activities like burning coal, gas, power, homes, everything leads to emission of GHGs. And if you see this diagram, you will see everything is linked, and physical climate is getting pressure from everywhere. To manage our Earth, we need to manage our combustion activities. Important learning from today's lecture, that is first session of this webinar. Climate change is a reality. Uncontrolled GHG emissions can lead to excessive greenhouse effect. Radiation balance of Earth can be disturbed by three ways: by changing the incoming solar radiation, by changing the fraction of solar radiation reflected, by altering the long wave radiation returned back to space. Climate responds directly or indirectly by different feedback mechanisms to such changes, and these are the consequences which we are going to face if we will not learn lessons today. Thank you so much. So we will have one more poll question, and the session is open for question and answers. The floor is open for question and answer session. So face-to-face participants can also ask questions. The online participant can send their queries through chat. Your all questions are welcome, and we will try to answer your questions to our capacity.
We often talk about oceans acting as sinks for carbon dioxide.
Right.
What is an expected time you can say that it will cease doing that?
We cannot say expected time as such, because as I said, there are lots of feedback mechanisms which are operating within the systems. So timeline can be predicted through modeling, like we can saturate it by this time, but that will be again with uncertainties, because there are lots of other factors which are also playing role in that. So kind of phytoplankton which are present, kind of soil structure, stone structure, carbonate rocks which are present in the ocean, acidification of the ocean. But people are working on it that like they are increasing the acidification of the water to absorb more carbon dioxide, or allowing it not to saturate. But again, we cannot give a fixed timeline for that. But this 2-degree consensus, where last COP in which we are coming to, so they have seen that how much is the ecosystem is disturbed because of the 2-degree rise. So they have come up with certain consensus that the sinks are getting saturated definitely. So if we exceed beyond 2 degrees, then definitely things would be out of our control. No, 2 degree cannot be a tipping point. Different tipping points have been explained: 2 degree, 3 degree, 4 degree, all. But 2 degree is a trade-off point. You can say that this is the point where the ecosystem can revert back. Their resilience capacity still exists. But tipping point is a point where resilience capacity we cannot revert back from that point. So it's a very big word to use.
Sumit Kumar is asking that, is there any estimation of increase in cloud cover as a result in temperature rise?
Yes, there are lots of studies where they have linked that cloud cover has increased because of increase in temperature. This can be explained by Tommy effect, Albrecht effect. There are scientific effects which have explained that how droplet size changes, cloud nuclei changes, and how cloud extent changes with the change in temperature. There are lots of studies which has relate these two factors together.
There is another question from Devika Rani, and she's asking that do aerosols are reflected by clouds?
Aerosols are reflected by clouds. No, I think this is the question has to be framed differently. The aerosols act as a cloud condensation nuclei, and because of excess increase of aerosols, there is a change in cloud cover and also the droplet size, and which ultimately affects the albedo of the clouds and ultimately affects the climate feedback system. So I think it has to be reframed in this way, that how increase in concentration of aerosols, particularly condensation nuclei concentration, affects the cloud formation.
Can I give one more question?
Yes.
There are many online queries actually.
We can take one more.
Asking. Yeah. So Ashish Baldania is asking that if we know that industries are the main source of GHG, are we imposing any action plan to them?
Yes, we have a national we have a national action plan on place. It has different basically postulates and 8 particularly missions under that. And there are increased energy efficiency is also there. And different state level action plans are also at place. So at state level and national level, we do have action plans, but definitely we need to have a more stringent target-based national actions so that quick response we should achieve in that matter. But we do have action plans.
There's a question from Marinder Chakrabarti, and she is asking that temperature and humidity levels has also increased before in the time. So why are we putting so much of stress on the temperature rise?
Okay, so this question will be, you will understand more when my colleague will present another PPT in the third session, climate modeling, but I just try to answer this. Yes, we have a different ice ages cycle and interglacial cycles in the past. And now it is evident that the carbon dioxide levels right now which we have are much higher as compared to the different interglacial times. So ice core evidences are proving it. So that is why we are more worrisome right now with the high concentration of CO2 and related temperatures. Session 2 will resume at 10:30 sharp. Thank you so much.